Well, hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Kaide Okikelu here in Lagos. We'll begin tonight with what is now becoming some sort of standoff between the Zamfara State Deputy Governor, Madi Gusau, and his principal and the Governor of the state, Bello Matawalle. Well, earlier today, the Deputy Governor called out Governor Bello Matawalle over the disruption of the PDP Congress by suspected political thugs. Well, the assailants are said to have invaded the Zaytun oil mill venue of the election and destroyed voting materials, nomination forms, vehicles belonging to party members, and set canopies ablaze. And the party eventually settled for the Gusau Command Guest House, where the Congress was then conducted. Now, speaking after the rescheduled election, the Deputy Governor, besides calling out Governor Matawalle over the incident, is also confident that the party is now poised to play its leading role as a major opposition political party. The state chairman of the party also spoke.
We are opposition party in the state, and today is going to be our state congress where we are going to elect our state leaders. When I came in the morning, everything was okay. When I left, somebody just called me and told me that our place was destroyed. I rushed and I saw what is going on here. So I cannot say this is exactly what happened, but I was told there is thugs that came and do the destructions. You know, PDP is law-abiding party, so we are going to investigate and find out who are those thugs and who is behind them. Then we take action against who is behind them and the thugs. We are going to do our congress in Command Guest Inn Hotel, and we are going to elect our leaders. And by God's grace, we are going to reposition ourselves and become the opposition party in the state, and we will do the work of opposition party in the state, inshallah.
Well, we reached out to the governor for a response to the deputy governor's comments, which were not captured in that particular one. But while we wait, the APC in the state has also put out a statement regarding the event, distancing the governor from that attack, which you saw there, saying that the governor has time and again said that he will and has maintained a conducive political environment in the state, which is also being enjoyed. But a quick background here. Zamfara really is a very unique state in terms of the political dynamics. Recall in June when Governor Bello Matawalle defected to the APC, his deputy, Madi Gusau, stayed back in the PDP. So these political wranglings were only a matter of time, really. But the fears are that this should not seep into governance itself. Don't forget that Zamfara State is still grappling with banditry. Well, there were a series of attacks on Christmas Day in several communities in the state, with at least 7 people dead. So clearly, a lot of work is still to be done here. Well, let's now bring you an update on a story we brought yesterday. The police have now released a former Imo State governorship candidate, Mr. Uche Nwosu. Well, Mr. Nwosu's son-in-law to former Governor Rochas Okorocha was whisked away by the security agencies at St. Peter's Anglican Church, Ezema Obare, in Ikwere local government area of Imo State on Sunday. Well, the heavily armed security operatives stormed the church and shot sporadically into the air before arresting Mr. Nwosu. Well, a special advisor to Mr. Nwosu on media, Wadike Chikeze, who confirmed the release via statement, said that his principal did not spend a night in custody. Well, former Governor Rochas Okorocha had threatened to take legal action if Mr. Nwosu was not released in 24 hours. And now to one of our big talking points tonight, and that's the intra-political wranglings within the ruling APC. That's at the national level. Of course, we've seen some of this play out also at the sub-nationals. Well, the party is counting down to the proposed national convention come February next year. But then there are concerns on the certainty of that flagship event. Well, some groups within the party have raised fears of possible extension of a tenure of the caretaker leadership, some even calling the arrangement unconstitutional. The caretaker committee leadership has disowned the groups, saying that they are not recognized. Just recently, another group called the Progressive Mandate Movement has given the party leadership an ultimatum to publish the details of the planned convention, or they will be forced to occupy the National Secretariat. Well, we are sinking our teeth into that controversy tonight. It's a very important conversation because this is the party in government, and their internal issues will most likely affect the quality of governance across the board. So let's take a deep dive. We're joined on the program by Mr. Ahmed Sajo, who's a concerned APC member, joins us from our Abuja studio, and right next to him is Prince Mustapha Audu, a leader, Progressive Youth Movement. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the program tonight.
Thank you very much. The Merry Christmas, compliment of the season.
Well, thank you very much. We certainly hope it's merry, merry in the APC at this time. And let me begin with Prince Audu, because your party, the APC, is meant to be the standard to beat in terms of internal democracy, conduct of members, conduct of party processes. But it doesn't look like that's the case here. So what exactly is the grouse for you and your group?
First of all, Kaide, good evening. Good evening to all Nigerians. I'm so happy to be here. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and an excellent 2022 to everyone. Unfortunately, our party has not set the right standard. We are the ruling party, we are the party in power, but we've not led by example, especially when it comes to party politics. We have an illegal CEC-PC still currently in place. Even though our group has disbanded them, we no longer recognize them. But we already know something. We already know that the CEC-PC had no intention and still has no intention to conduct the convention. They intend to bamboozle the whole party and the whole country till sometime in June, July, then mix everything up by giving us convention, party primaries, everything all at once in one shambolic exercise. So we know what they're about. We know what their intentions are. Their intentions are clear. Anyone with an intention to do convention on the 5th of February, hey, the entire party should be aware. Everybody should be mobilizing towards it. There should be, moves towards reconciliation. Right now, out of the 36 states that should have 36 chairmen, we have over 93 chairmen in the APC currently. And still, there are many more factions in other states that have not yet been recognized. So it is clear that there is a deep issue, and unfortunately the people handling the matters are PDP men, especially Senator Akpan Udo-Dehe, which is a full-fledged PDP man out here to destroy the APC. He has actually sent his brother a few weeks ago to go back to
Prince
the PDP
Audu,
to wait for him while he
Let me quickly come in here,
APC.
Prince Audu, so we can have a fruitful conversation.
Yes.
Let's not make this personal. No personal attacks. Let's speak to the issues. Well, he's not here to defend himself, so let's just stick to the issues. So please go ahead.
We're sticking to the issues. He is, or he was the secretary of the APC. So we're not speaking to him as an individual. We're speaking to him as the previous secretary of the CEC-PC. This is why there are actually issues in the APC. People have come in from other parties and taken up critical positions that should have been for loyal party members. There's no strategy, there's no coming together, no meetings, no in-depth plan, no 2-year, 5-year policy, nothing. We're just watching how and seeing what they're doing, and it's very unfortunate. So as young stakeholders in the party, we're no longer happy with just keeping quiet. We want to be part of this system that we built. We built the APC. All young people came together with many others to build this APC. But unfortunately, what is going on is not what we expected. And going forward, Kayode, you're watching. I challenge you to tell me that there will be a convention and prove to me, God give us life, 5th of February, right? We'll see, there will be no convention. So I know that these are dishonest men that we're dealing with, handling the party and controlling over 200 million people. So
again,
what we want is honesty in the APC.
Okay,
what we
Prince
want
Audu,
is for people, our leaders, to be
here's what I
honest
can
with
tell
us,
you.
for us to come together and have a real plan.
Okay,
towards
let me
a
just put this in
convention
just
to
a
produce
moment,
a
Prince
chairman
Audu.
and an NWC. Right now, the
if you can hear
APC
me,
doesn't
Prince
have an
Audu,
NWC.
let me just put this in, as we progress. let's watch the use of our language on the one hand, but also just to get your grouse clearly. So is your grouse about the planned convention? I mean, I can't tell you what will happen in the future, but I can ask you the questions, right? So one, is it about the planned convention? Yeah. Is it about the legality of the caretaker committee? Is it about the conduct of the committee, or your participation or lack of your participation within party affairs? What exactly is your grouse before we move to Mr. Sajo?
I think that's where all of this stems from. It stems from the lack of youth participating properly in critical positions in the party. This is where we started from. So we wanted youth inclusion in the party. And the best way to do that is at the convention. But as we start going around the country and, you know, bringing more awareness to the issue of youth inclusion, we approached our party leaders to discuss this issue, this grave issue affecting all young people in the country. We're over 170 million young people, and there's very little representation. You have less than 1% of the people in government representing the largest population. So that's what we wanted to do. We sat down with our party leaders, but after they sit down, it was clear that what we were doing was affecting them. And it was simple. There was no intention for a convention. But we were pushing for a convention. We want a convention to happen. And not just happen, we want to be included. We want to have critical positions in the party. This is when we ran into various obstacles. One obstacle after the other, just simply because we wanted youth inclusion. So by discussing with these party leaders, we saw that there was no genuine intention. So we decided, okay, as young people, if there's no room for us, A, and B, there's no room for a convention. They don't want to do a convention till August, September. That's the plan. Okay. So if that's the case, we're not ready for that. We want a convention early on. We will go ahead and do our convention if they don't want to. As soon as we declared February for our convention, the governors met the very next day in Abuja and also declared February for their convention. So we said, okay, we don't believe you. We went ahead and picked February 26th. But what did the leaders do? Instead of calling us for discussions, for negotiations, for an understanding of what the problem is, they sent DSS after us. Even the DSS, I've never met such intelligent, hardworking, loving Nigerians before. The security agencies themselves knew that what is going on cannot continue. There must be some sort of progress in the country from one administration to another, from one party to another. There must be growth. But this growth is not being reflected. And as young people, that's all we are asking for. But never have our leaders sat with us. And the reason why they are afraid to sit with us is that we are not the type that you sit with us and tell us convention is in February and we go to bed. Right. When you tell us convention is in February, we want to know the committees. We want to know the people. We want to know what you're doing about resolving the issues. These questions, they're not ready to answer. Okay. So because they are not ready to answer, the approach is force.
Well, let's try to get some answers.
This is the issue, and this is where we are.
And I like the way you have, reeled out these your concerns. So let's try to get some answers, if we can, from Mr. Sajo. I mean, Mr. Sajo, he has listed quite a number of issues, a lot of them. Well, Prince, I'll also come back to that, your planned convention, which you talked about. But Mr. Sajo, I mean, for your opening comments, how do you respond to issues about, Prince Aldo saying there are no genuine intentions, at least on the path of the caretaker committee, talking about internal democracy, no plans for even the convention. How do you respond?
First and foremost, let me wish you a very, very Merry Christmas and compliment of the season to all Nigerians. I think I'm very glad. I like the passion with which my brother here is talking. But let us separate the issues from the emotions, from the sentiment. First and foremost, I am at loss as to the legitimacy, the legitimate basis upon which my brother here, my younger brother here is talking. They have disowned a group that they were not the ones that set it up, and that they do not have either constitutional or even moral authority over. They are saying they can read people's intentions, and that is very, very serious. I used to believe my own days that there is no arts to read the mind's construction on the face, but here are people who are telling me that they have read other people's intentions, and they're premising everything they're doing on the fact that they have read other people's intentions. I think we should separate those emotive issues and look at the real issues the way they are. First and foremost, let's look at it from the nomenclature of the committee we're talking about. It's a caretaker extraordinary convention committee. So it presupposes that a convention committee is already in place. And that is one. Two, that that same committee is still the legitimate leadership the party has at the secretariat if you go. And it's still the legitimate leadership of the party that agencies of government under the law deal with. You cannot question their legitimacy at this point in time. And then thirdly, on the 20th of December, just about 4 or 5 days before Christmas, the committee met and discussed and agreed to set up a process of determining the cost of hosting the convention and also the modalities and the structure the convention will take. And a statement was issued to that effect. We also know that, legally, the notice they are supposed to give the electoral body before they hold the convention is 21 days notice. And from purely legal point of view, even if a date has been agreed to, we have not yet exhausted the 21 days notice that is supposed to be given to INEC to presuppose that there is no intention to hold conventions. So let us separate the facts from the emotive issues and look at them very dispassionately. I think I would rather not go with anybody's intention. I will go with what the law says. I will go with what is legal. I will go with what the situation is on ground. And legally, as at today, the caretaker extraordinary convention committee is the leadership of the party. Legally, as at today, it is still possible to hold a convention in February. What I'm even questioning is the fact that the February 5th, I don't know who mentioned February 5th, but I know that the leadership of the party said they will hold a convention in February, and we're waiting. February is still a little bit far off considering the legal processes that are required. Not the emotional processes, but the legal processes.
So let's stay on that legal...
based on what has happened, to see what exactly is going to happen. And we would rather work with what is, concrete than what we think is the intention of some individuals.
Okay, and so let's stay on what is concrete.
In appealing to my younger brother here, that I think whatever we're going to do in the open media, we should respect people's positions. We should we should avoid mentioning people's names who are not around to defend themselves. Yes, I think we should continue to look at the issues.
Okay, Mr. Sajo, let's just stick to the concrete
and the
things
structures the
you
way
mentioned.
They are, but avoid individuals, naming individuals.
Quickly, just sticking to the concrete things you mentioned. You said that legally, the CPC, that's the convention, the Caretaker and Extraordinary Convention Planning Committee, is legally the leadership structure of your party. And that's the question that has been raised, that what part of the APC constitution recognizes that kind of arrangement?
Well, the part that gives the National Executive Council the powers to set up committees for the good governance of the party. The National Executive Council, it's the highest decision-making body in between conventions. And it was the NEC, the National Executive Council, that established the Caretaker Committee. So it's a constitutional matter. But I believe that anybody who thinks that for whatever reason that the person does not agree with the arrangement, it's been over a year now. Somebody should go to court and question it legally, not determine, on the pages of newspaper or in front of a television station to say this is legal or this is illegal. I have no powers to determine the legality of an institution. You have no powers to determine the legality of an institution. The body does not have powers to determine the legality of an institution. The only body that can determine the legality of an institution is a competent court of law.
Okay.
So anybody who doesn't go to court of law and sits in front of a television camera and says something is illegal, he's not talking of
Prince Audu
legality.
wants to intervene on that, Mr. Sajo. So Prince Audu, go ahead, please.
We have some certain points to cover that. He's right. The legality of it is what matters. And I'll quote our APC constitution and the Nigerian constitution to show that we're in violation. Article 17(4) of the APC constitution states that no officer in any organ of the party can concurrently hold another position in government, especially a governor. So first of all, we're in violation of the APC constitution. The Nigerian constitution, Article 183, also states that no governor can hold any other position concurrently. Then if you now delve into the APC constitution to actually find out the powers of NEC that he has mentioned and the BOT, there are actually only two bodies according to the APC constitution that can carry out a national convention, which is the BOT and the NEC. Now, the NEC can set up, just like he had mentioned, the NEC can set up a committee to carry out the planning of the convention, which is the CCPC. But according to the APC constitution, it states that the NEC must give a timeline. And if that timeline elapses, the NEC must sit down again to extend the timeline. Now, at the first meeting in June 2020, after that 6 months was set up for the CCPC, the NEC was dissolved. In order for NEC to sit down, you need 1/3. You need 1/3 to form a quorum. Now, out of the 39 members, 29 have been dissolved. So you have only 10 members available out of almost 40. So therefore, it's impossible for the NEC to sit at this point to extend the tenure of the CCPC, which means that the CCPC is illegal. Now, also, there are other dangers that we are facing that courtrooms are exposing now is that there's only the NWC has the power to set up screening committees for governorship and presidential elections. We've done 2 elections so far. The results in courts have been disastrous. We're about to do 2 more elections coming up, Ekiti and Osun. If anybody were to go to court and say the CCPC does not have the legal right to conduct that, we will lose that election.
Well, Prince Audu,
we would certainly lose the election. So you see, we're currently in violation of APC constitution and Nigerian constitution.
So as we wind down,
as a body who respects the law, what do? We have proceeded to court. We have asked the court to determine whether the Nigerian constitution, Article 183, is being violated, whether the APC constitution, Article 17(4), is actually being violated. The court needs to interpret that part of the constitution for us. Because as a layman, I'm a layman, I'm not a lawyer. As a layman, the constitution tells me if you're a governor, you cannot hold any other position. For obvious reasons, the influence, the power the governor wields over is undue power. Imagine if your governor was the chairman of your party in your state. Anything your governor says is what happens. So this was what was envisaged while both constitutions were being created. Now we're in violation of both constitutions.
So Prince Audu, we're winding down on this conversation.
Utter impunity.
We're winding down on this conversation.
So if you look at it right now,
I was going to ask you if you have gone, just a moment.
If he knows it, I'll refer him.
Right, gentlemen, just a moment. So we have about 2 minutes to wind down on this conversation. So Prince Audu says they've gone to court to get interpretation of those sections. So it would seem that we're waiting on the court to get an understanding of what's playing out here. But on a final note, gentlemen, and
January 19th.
January 19th, right. So on a final note, and let me begin from Mr. Sajo. So a few days to the planned convention, it looks like a lot of groups are still questioning not just the legitimacy, but the modus operandi. In fact, Prince Audu says they have a parallel structure now. So clearly a lot of issues ongoing within the party. What should the convention planning committee be focusing on to ensure that these issues are resolved before it blows up in the face of the party?
Let me sharply, quickly, respond to that. But before that, let me tell you that if he has gone to court I mean, you can't go to court and then sit down again and determine what you think the court should have determined. I think he should keep to his belief in the court of law as an arbiter. Secondly, I want to say that sometimes we make very sweeping generalizations on some issues. A governor, can hold ad hoc positions. We have chairmen of governors forums at national, at party level, at regional level. You cannot say these guys are holding concurrent positions as determined by the Constitution. I think we should allow the courts to determine some of those things.
Okay.
But I must assure you that from what I said, on the 20th of December, the Caretaker Extraordinary Convention Committee had met, and they are already working on the modalities for the convention.
Okay, Mr.
They are also
Sajo.
working on the budgeting for the convention.
Okay, we have to go now, Mr.
return
Sajo,
from,
because of our time.
The holidays.
I said we had 2 minutes.
Start.
Okay, I said we had 2 minutes to wind down, just 30 seconds now. So, Prince Audu, what must the Convention Planning Committee do in 30 seconds to ensure that things go smoothly as we wind down?
To be honest, first of all, we don't recognize them, the PYM, but if they are serious about what they want to do, reconciliation planning, dates, timeline, you need to involve everybody. You need to be open about this. That's the only way. The whole country, Nigerians are watching. We're just lying to ourselves. Nigerians are watching quietly. We can't fool Nigerians. There's so much hardship going on. There's so many things that are going wrong.
Right.
In order to fix this, all is required from our leaders. It's just honesty.
And that's a great place to anchor.
Tell us this is the real situation. How can we come together to salvage what is going on?
Well, gentlemen, we must go on this one now. Clearly an ongoing conversation.
Bring us
I'd like to thank you.
Let us work together and let us change things.
Okay, we have to run. Prince Mustapha Audu, thank you so much for your thoughts, as well as Mr. Ahmed Sajo, concerned APC member. It's been great having you, gentlemen. I wish you the very best.
Thank you very much.
So while we continue to monitor the APC's build-up to the planned convention, amidst all of these controversies, let's get some perspective on the performance of the APC-led administration. It's been a year of promises. At the start of the year, President Buhari, in his New Year message, said the year 2021 will indeed be a year we will work to reinforce the hopes of fellow Nigerians and the vision of a united and progressive Nigeria. And the president spoke about some key areas he will focus on: security, economy, and anti-corruption. We'll go on this break, and when we return, we'll find out how well this government has performed with Mr. Shehu Gabam, the National Secretary of SDP. Welcome back. Now, in order to prosecute this next conversation, we need to take a look at the goals this government set at the start of this year 2021, which is winding down now. And across some levels, the president, in his New Year message, spoke about some of the plans he has for the country in the area of youth empowerment, economy, security, and even fight against corruption. Take youth empowerment, for example. A part of the president's New Year message says, as a government, we're committed to actively engaging with the creative energies of our young people. We'll partner with the legislature to develop an enabling environment to turn their passions into ideas that can be supported, groomed, and scaled across regions. Talked about plans to create vast opportunities in fintech, agriculture, business, and the rest. He also spoke about the economy, saying that the focus is on revamping the economy through the national economic diversification agenda that supports the primary goal of national food self-sufficiency. The president did not leave security out, of course, saying that the plans are to reorganize the security apparatus and personnel of the armed forces and the police with a view to enhance their capacity to engage, push back, and dismantle the operations of extremists and criminal groups. So these were the promises made, as it were, by President Buhari at the start of the year. So to take a look at how well this government has performed, as well as some other major events like you've seen the Electoral Act Amendment Bill at the National Assembly. We're joined, as I said earlier on, by Mr. Shehu Gabam, the National Secretary of the SDP. Mr. Gabam, thank you for joining us on the program this evening. So, I mean, we've seen some of the promises. Thank you. We've seen some of the promises that the president made at the start of this year, 2021. And just across those key sectors, which is youth empowerment, the economy, and security, what will be your rating?
Well, let me start by saying that Merry Christmas to all our brothers and sisters and a prosperous New Year. Given the situation at hand and the New Year message by Mr. President, and given the situation on ground, you know that these are normal rhetorics coming from the executive, as usual. You know, at the beginning of his administration, his fundamental focus is one, corruption, security, empowerment or employment of the youth, which constitutes the large percentage of Nigerians. In all these three, none is working. And if you further take into analysis of what he has said, he talked about, you know, in the absence of having a secured environment where the lives of citizens and their property are being secured, and the absence of having a conducive political environment, there will be no economic development. The same president said so. So if you categorize this and you take deep analysis of what is going on, one, the security situation is degenerating on a daily basis. Even today, as we are talking, things are going very badly, very nasty. Hearts are being broken. More children are being turned into orphans. Women are being turned into widows. People, foodstuff, are being burned into ashes as we are talking. So in terms of providing security for people to leverage on and for investors to come in, you can say it's almost an impossible situation. In terms of the political environment is extremely very chaotic, being generated by unnecessary things brought into the Electoral Act, instead of focusing on fundamental issues that would have strengthened our electoral processes, that would have strengthened the sanctity of the process, and that would have given INEC a lot of powers to take away unnecessary litigations. You see, bringing direct primaries, taking away certain rights and privileges of political parties that was approved by the convention and their constitution, created the kind of situation that we have seen. So on both sides, we are almost at a very turmoil situation, economically, politically, and security-wise. So I think it's far beyond a sweet talk, in a situation where the country is at a crossroads. We all need to put our hands on deck, work together as Nigerians. We don't have any other nation except Nigeria. We must be committed to our country, and nobody have a monopoly of information or capacity to generate ideas on things, how things can be done. We have seen other administrations where they have excelled in certain areas, where they have issues in certain areas. This government is not liking in terms of searching for where other predecessors have done well, where they have failed, so that they can move on. And we have surplus of intellectuals in this country, people with capacity, with leadership responsibilities and qualities that has been abandoned, not being consulted. Even the former head of state that have served this country in different capacities, with their experience, I thought that President Buhari, being a former military head of state, now democratically elected president, that have campaigned on a variety of issues, ought to have put every sentiment aside, put the nation first, and consult leaders that have capacity to add value to his government. And at the end of the day, he is the one to take credit, not any other person. So things are in turmoil. The New Year or Christmas message is good for the president to say things that are sweet. But what is on ground contradicts absolutely what the president have said.
Just to be clear, do you have it on good authority that the president does not consult with some of these leaders?
Do I need to have it on good authority? I'm always listening to current affairs. I watch Federal Executive Council meeting. I watch all the necessary meetings that are needed. And before I know, there's what they call Council of State meeting, where all the former head of state used to attend. And we have seen other former head of state who traveled, visit some very important personalities that have vast experience, vast knowledge on governance. and they did well. In fairness to them, they did very well. Nigeria is a very complicated country. I can tell you Nigeria is more complicated than US. Our diversity shouldn't be our weakness. Our diversity should be our strength. And in a country where you have a very young, vibrant people, very young people that are committed, that are very active, in a country where you have a very virgin economy, there is no reason absolutely for Nigeria to go through what they are going through today. There's no reason for poverty in Nigeria, no justification for it. You can diversify this economy. You can restructure this economy to accommodate the situation that we have on ground. You cannot continue producing a population that you do not plan for. We have over 200 million people, and every day, if you go and do a checklist of women that are giving birth in hospitals, go to the population census, it's very scary, it's very disturbing. And there is no single plan. I don't know if there's a Minister of Planning right now, to articulate some of these programs and policies to help the government, stabilize their policy and programs. So it's a very chaotic situation that we are in. We can't travel anywhere. You can't walk on the street feeling free. Even in your house, you feel panic, because the system, the pressure is palpable, is touchable. So the president needs to know this. If there's people in the government that are not telling him, they are protecting him from hearing some disturbing news, when you fail to do the needful will come to you. And all we are telling the president, do the needful, so that the needful will not be there. And that needful will not be good for anybody, will not be good for the country. As big as Nigeria, one of the biggest, populated country, with over 200 million, every commercial activity you needed, the population will consume it. Even if you are producing toothpick, it will give you a lot of resources that you need. Not to talk of a nation that is so diverse and endowed with so many natural mineral resources in every state of the federation. And you need to do the needful to adjust all those things, allow investors to come in, take away lazy governance, irresponsibility, reactivate structures of governance. The governance should allow local government to function, should allow state assembly to function, should allow state judiciary to function. These are things that protect people from going to the extreme. As it is today, the only emperors you have who are capitalists and imperialists elected are the governors. I'm not shifting the entire security situation to the president and commander-in-chief, because governors are president in their own right, in their own states. They legislate over their state. They have state assembly. They have state judiciary. But what happens? What is going on in the states where you see 300, 100 people riding on a bike? Kidnapping people cannot be traced. How do you justify a situation where trillions were invested in buying the best sophisticated machines, surveillance equipment, and yet people cannot be detected? How do you explain? How can a Ministry of Communication and NCC explain people can be kidnapped, communicating with kidnappers, negotiating with kidnappers, and the location cannot be dictated? How do you explain this as a nation? No matter how you look at it, no matter how sympathetic you are to the government, you have to understand that the country is going through tremendous trial. The challenges are enormous, and that is why it has overrun the government. It has overstretched our security apparatus that are doing excellently well, despite the shortcomings. We must commend our security agencies that are going extra mile to make sure this country is safe, despite lack of what it takes in terms of being properly equipped. How do you defend police officers that will be on the road, liking what to eat, have no food to feed their family, have no food, shoes to wear, are going with slippers, carrying AK-47, escorting people, spreading money everywhere, in weddings that runs into billions, governors spending billions to organize weddings, and you have investigating agencies, EFCC.
Right.
How do you defend
that? I need to put in a question or two as we wind down. I mean, because we have quite a number of areas to cover. And, we're counting down to a new year. The president, as expected, will eventually still put out a New Year message and still speak about some of the goals to achieve in the new year. So for you, being a leader in a party, and by extension, leader of people, I mean, you must have gleaned, ideas from the people, where the shoe pinches and the rest. What must this government get right in this coming new year, if you were to set an agenda for the government?
My agenda for the government and for this president that I have voted for, which gave me the right and every power to contribute and to criticize positively, is to engage the society.
there's so much intra-ring race. There's so much agitations. There's attempt for secessionists. You know, these are political issues that can be brought around political table. The president must invite all political parties together, listen to them, listen to the issues, listen to the grievances, and deal with it diplomatically as the president and commander-in-chief. The president must look at what is happening in the field, where people are being killed unchallenged, where people are disappearing unchallenged. You know, largely, the president must look into this. What is happening? What is the main issue? Was it that the officers that are in the field carrying these operations are not properly being taken care of, or are not properly being motivated? What is happening? Something must go wrong. A lot of things are ongoing. As the president and commander-in-chief, my expectation is that he is the father of the country. He must bring everybody under check. He must develop a capacity to engage the society. He must develop a capacity to bring in people that have the capacity to market the policies and programs of government. You don't have one. Anything that happens, you will hear nasty, reactions from government handlers. This is not the way to run the government. I've been around it. I was among the founders of PDP from G7. I have sacrificed for this country. I've been to every state of the Federation of Nigeria. We cannot sit down and allow hundreds of thousands and millions of our youth on the street have gone into drugs because of frustration, are into a lot of scams, not that they wish to do it, but because there's failure of priority. In the absence of prioritizing leadership and governance,
Mr. Gabam,
these are unpreventable consequences that will continue to go through.
I'm almost tempted to ask if you're marketing yourself, but we're totally out of time. I'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Shehu Gabam, the National Secretary.
I wish I am.
The National Secretary of the SDP. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on the program tonight.
My great pleasure. Thank you.
Well, let's now zoom into subnational governance. After all, the success of Nigeria will be a function of the three tiers of government: the federal, state, and local. We're counting down to the Ekiti governorship election, and INEC has set the date for the conduct of the polls as June the 18th, 2022. That's exactly 5 months and 22 days from now. Well, so let's tell you this. Prominent figures from Ekiti South Senatorial District are agitating that the governorship seat should come to their zone. So tonight we're taking a look at the merits, perhaps to the merits of their demands. And to do that with us is Professor Philip Adetiloye, who's a chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, is a professor at Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, and convener Ekiti Concerned Citizens. Prof, it's good to have you on the program. And incidentally, Mr. Gabam, just in the conversation we're having, spoke about ethnicity should be our strength and not our weakness. So for you, what determines a leader, really? Competence or ethnic affiliations?
Well, let me start by saying greetings of the season to our listeners. Your question is very pertinent because there's been a lot of debate on whether it's competence or ethnic affiliation, but I think what is really important and what we need a lot in the state in Nigeria is competence, not necessarily ethnic affiliation. But ethnic affiliation also can come into play in situations where we are talking about balancing of powers, justice, fairness, and equity. But in addressing that ethnic affiliation, in order to create peace and harmony within a diverse group of people, we must not sacrifice competence. And competence is very important, and it's lack of competence that is creating all the myriads of problems we are having in our society today. We need leaders that are competent. We need leaders that can make good decisions. We need leaders that can prioritize the direction that the state or the country is moving to appropriately. So I think competence is important, but we must not also relegate ethnic affiliation in a diverse society to the background.
So if competence is the major thing to consider when choosing leaders, what then would you say are the merits of your zone, Ekiti South, saying that, well, the governorship seat must come to your zone?
Oh, thank you very much. When we are talking about competence, Ekiti State has 3 senatorial districts. We have the North, we have the Central, we have the South senatorial districts. And the North has 5 local governments. The Central has 5 local governments. Ekiti South has 6 local governments. And so in terms of numerical strength, Ekiti South is more than the North and the Central. And up to now, 22 years after the dispensation of democratic governance, Ekiti South has not produced an elected governor for the state, notwithstanding the fact that we have 6 local governments, while the others have 5 local governments each. And in terms of strength, there's no disputing the fact that Ekiti South is highly endowed with highly competent people, seasoned politicians, technocrats, highly educated people, lawyers, engineers, doctors, professors. We have all these in Ekiti State. And so it's very insulting and surprising that somebody will say a section of Ekiti State has no competence to rule or to produce the governor of the state. So in terms of competence, Ekiti South has what it takes to produce a governor for the state. And let me also say this, a highly prominent Nigerian, Ariafe Babalola, did say that Ekiti State has nothing to celebrate 25 years after the creation of that state. And that is highly implicating. And now, if you are people that have come from the north and have come from the central, have ruled the state for 22 years, beg your pardon, and the state has not made progress, and you are saying that you have the competent people. I mean, ordinarily, you should realize that you have not moved the state forward, and you should give people, other people, the opportunity to move the state forward. So we are not even just talking about sentiments of senatorial affiliation and so on and so forth, but we need to move Ekiti State forward. Ekiti State has been more or less very static. And for us to move the state forward, let's try other hands. And this is where I think we should now be looking forward to Ekiti South. Not only that, the voters, the Elders Council, the Elders Forum in North, South, and Central, they are saying that the next governor must come from Ekiti South. So why all the manipulations that are going on right now?
Okay.
In
Prof,
what I would call absence of democracy, but pure aristocracy.
So a couple of issues to raise with you, but on this point you made about manipulations, what do you mean by that, manipulations?
Yeah, that's the really serious problem we are having right now in Ekiti State. The political process is being highly manipulated, and this is creating a playground that is not level. And this manipulation has been going on for months. And some of us have been complaining about these manipulations. And that is why the democratic process is being jeopardized. And what we are having now is authoritarianism and aristocracy in Ekiti State. Let me tell you, we had Congress recently, and you won't believe it, that those whose name came up in the ESCOs were written by just a few cronies of the governor. I mean, 4 people writing the names of the ESCOs for each ward in each of the 16 local governments. And the names submitted by party leaders in the local governments were rejected. And the state machinery came and coerced people that they should accept the list written by the cronies of Mr. Governor. I mean, this is not people saying it. And a lot of people kept quiet. Some of us complained that this should not be so. And then they went behind to talk to people to accept. That is one manipulation, that when the cronies of government actually went and wrote the name of the delegates, you have biased the primary election. whoever the governor picks will automatically win the primary election. So that is not a level playing ground.
Well, I know that your
not
party...
Not only that, what
you
we
can
now
make that
having
point.
is a situation where, because the delegate election process has been biased by those who call themselves the Fayemi Toko Toko or the Fayemi cronies, what we now have is a situation that the governor and his cronies went and picked a candidate, the anointed candidate of the governor, even though he has denied this several times. But all the events that has happened suggest that what Mr. Governor is saying is different from what he's doing.
Okay,
And so
Prof.
Having brought a candidate from the north and also creating a playing ground that is not level, simply because they had manipulated the Congress.
Okay,
so
Prof, we're winding down now.
We automatically win the primary election.
Okay, we're winding down now in about a minute,
and
Prof.
That is a big problem we are having now.
Okay, so let me just ask you as we wind down, Prof.
It's ethnic
just a minute.
That would determine...
Prof, I'm just trying to put this in as we wind down in about a minute. Just a minute. So your party, I know, put up a mechanism to try to resolve some of these issues. Have you approached, have you petitioned? What response did you get from the party leadership regarding what you said played out during that Congress? Well,
we petitioned, we went there. In my local government, we were invited to the governor's office. They talked with us. And when, after the meeting, they advised that we should go and resolve it. At the end of the day, they now told the people that they should allow the delegates that have been nominated by the Fayemi Toko Toko to subsist. And so if you have this kind of scenario, what will happen when you use these people as delegates in the coming, election, if you use indirect primaries? Well, and so automatically, the governor claims to have the structure of the state, and even though it's denied that he's supporting a candidate, all the vehicles that are being used, all the political appointees, all of the governor, they are supporting this particular candidate. They take official vehicles to move
Prof, you have
from one local government to the other, campaigning for him.
Well, Prof, you have certainly made
Mr.
your
Governor
case.
Has not created a level playing ground in Ekiti State for the next coming primary and governorship elections.
Well, you have certainly made your case, Prof. I would like to thank you so much. I believe that your party and the organs are listening. I mean, we're counting down to that convention. But we'd like to thank you once again, Professor Philip Adetiloye, a chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, also professor at Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, and convener, Ekiti Concerned Citizens. Thank you so much for your time on the program tonight.
Thank you.
So that's our package for today, everyone. Thank you for watching. I'm Kayode Okikele. Good night.